Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about prompt flows. Prompt flows are a development tool in Azure Foundry, and they allow you to build flows. And a flow is you can see it as a sequence of nodes where each node has some computing capabilities, and each node can be a call to the LLM, a call to a Python program, or a call to some other tool. So in the flows, the idea is that you combine LN calls, Python programs, and additional tools to create more comprehensive applications than if you just use, for example, LLMs. Now, flows, there come in three types. And if you click on they are found in the prompt flow option on the left in Azure Foundry. Now, there are some specifics for them, but I will come to that in a minute. And in these flows, I have a few, and I will show you how some of these work. And if you click create, you will see that there are three types of flows to be created: standard flow, chat flow, and evaluation flow. Now, there is also a lot of samples. You can also upload flows. So the flows are made as a code. So the flows are packaged and can be just uploaded. And what is the difference between these? Well, standard flows are just a combination of normal LLM calls and Python, just a standard way to make a more complex GenAI application. Chat flows focus on chat, and that is their main difference. Their let's say their run or their running is like a chatbot. Yeah, and evaluation flows, they are mostly used for evaluating how other flows perform. And I will actually not talk more about evaluation flows today. I will mostly focus on standard flows, and I will just show you an example of a chat flow. Yeah. So yeah, now there is one thing that you need to know before you can use these flows, and that is the flows need to be made in a hub project. Yeah. So in Azure Foundry, there are two different types of projects. There are just Azure Foundry projects and there are hub projects, and you can see them if you go and create new. You will see here that you can make an Azure AI Foundry resource or a hub resource, and flows can be only made in the hub resource. Also, some other options are only available in the hub resources, but nevertheless. So you need to have a hub project to be able to make flows. Also, there are certain things that you need to set up before you can make a flow. Or when you make a flow, well, let me just show you. And I say, okay, make a standard flow. Now, this flow needs a location where it will be stored. So as I told you, like flow is a code. So it can be represented as a code. The code that describes the flow itself and the surrounding code for the Python files, for prompts, for example, etc. So the code needs a storage, and this storage is a blob, Azure blob storage that you need to set up beforehand, or if you don't set it up beforehand, you need to set it up and you need to assign proper permissions. So actually, I will now show how to set these permissions, because without it, you cannot just make flows. So if we go into Management Center, in here, I will see an Azure blob storage for my hub project. If I go into this storage configuration page, I see here some properties, and what I actually need to do, I need to go and view it in Azure Portal, because only in Azure Portal I can set required permissions. So I go in here, and then I say access control, and I say grant access to this resource under role assignment, and I could see here storage blob data contributor, this is the role that needs to be added, and you say next, and then you say okay, I want to add a member, and then you add yourself as a member. Yeah, or you say okay, I want to add manager identity, and then you add the manager identity that was your project, for example. So, and then you go click next, and then you click next, and then you review and assign your role. So this is this needs to be done. So what I believe is that the blob storage is created automatically, but or you need to create it, doesn't matter, but you need to create the blob storage, and you need to assign this particular role to it. Yeah. And then you can work with flows. So let's go back to the hub and to our flows. So I will now show you some basic flow. So when you create a basic flow, you will get this one. It's called joke flow. And well, you see, there is a lot of things going on this screen. Yeah. And what you can see on the right is something that is very nice, and that is a graph of the flow. And you can see quite easily what is happening here. So I have some inputs. These inputs go into a joke. The joke goes into an echo, and the echo goes into outputs. Yeah. So this is a graph, and on the left side, on the main left side, you can actually see. You can see the inputs, you can see the outputs, you can see the echo, and you can see the joke. Yeah. Now, inputs and outputs are just there by default. They have a name and a type and some value. And I will talk about this a little bit later. And the output has a name and a value. Yeah. Now, in here we also see two major components that you can use making flows. One component is a Python file. You can see it in here, a Python logo. And this is the code of this Python. Now, this code doesn't do too much, and I will show you some more complex codes and also in this video. And this is an LLM call. An LLM call is actually represented by the Jinja prompt. So this is Jinja 2 template prompts for calling the LLM. And in here on top is where you set up which LLM do you want to call. So it needs to be your own deployment. So for this connection, this is my deployment. You can say, okay, this is a way that I want to call it. This temperature, my max tokens, what is the response format, etc., etc. So you can set up a lot of things here for your prompt. But the most important is for your LLM calls. The most important is prompt. Now, let's go further. How do we connect, or how are these elements connected? Well, like this. So the input has a name. So it has a name of a topic. Now we know that the input connects to a joke. How does it then connect? Well, like this. The input for a joke is called also the topic. It's a string. And then the value of this input is the inputs.topic. So the value of this input is actually through this value parameter passing converted into the input of the joke. And then in the prompt, you can see that we can use this topic, or actually this topic. This is the topic that is the input and it belongs to a joke. We use it to then tell the system, okay, you're a bot, and tell us a joke about this topic. And then you can see the output of this joke is something, some type of text, and the output is going to echo. So if we go into the echo, the input of the echo is called the input, it's a string, and it is the output of the joke, whatever is the output of the joke. And actually in here, if you make the output to be XML, if you make the output to be JSON, in here, this can be seen as a JSON path, such that you can go deeper inside the JSON and get different values. And then in here, you can see that Python code imports the prompt flow from flow imports tool, and then actually is annotated as a tool, and the name of the Python code must correspond to name of this tool, and the name of the input must correspond to name of the input, and then what this echo outputs is just the same input, and it outputs the input, and the output is actually takes the output of echo as the joke, and that is how all these elements are connected. So it seems complex, but it's not that complex. So you need to be very careful to connect things properly. Now, these types of flows, you can test them quite easily. So I put a value of here, let's say horses, and I say run. So what this should do, it should give us a joke about horses, because that is what the LM, we told him, okay, give us a joke about the topic. The topic is horses, and then this echo just puts it out, and the output just show it. So let's see what will happen. Oh, we're done. Your outputs. Yeah, so this is the run, and then this is the output. And this is the joke about horses. Okay, let's change to fishes. Let's run. And it's done. Yeah, and so you can see that it runs quite fast. In here with outputs, you also have the logs. You see what happens. You have some metrics. Nothing, because we did not actually put any metrics. And you can see the trace. You can see what is the amount of time taken to run this flow. Now, token 0 is not completely correct. I don't know why that happens, but it's yeah, maybe a small bug in this component. Anyway, so this was a basic flow, and these compute sessions, they just they need to start it. They need to be started, and you should also stop them. Because I will now stop compute session, because these compute sessions are, or how to say, I'm not expert in how the flows are deployed internally, but I guess they're deployed on some virtual machines with some storage also, and then this incurs costs. So you should stop the sessions when you are done with your flows. Then let's go and check another flow, more complex flow. So this is a more complex flow. Let's see, there are some inputs. And what does this do? Well, this flow reads a document, chunks a document, summarizes the document, and then checks if the document is good content safety. Yeah, so it uses content safety analysis to check the document. So now the inputs, you can see them. There is more inputs, and you can put more inputs in the inputs, and only one output. And then you can see that the inputs do connect with different nodes. So one input goes to the read. If you see the read, now you can see the read is a more complex Python program. The input one of the read is actually .inputs.path. It's actually the path input of the inputs part, and that is nda.text. I will come to that later. And then this read actually reads a file, and outputs it as a text. You see it outputs it as a JSON, and then puts it into the chunk. The chunks this text based on parts of this text, based on words and paragraphs. And you see what is the text, what is the input of this text is the .read .output.text. So in here the read outputs JSON, and the chunk inputs only the text part of this JSON. Then the summarize is an LLM code, yeah? uses our GPT-4 Mini, but it returns JSON objects. So in here we want to make sure that the return is formatted. Okay. Now, actually, this also in here you can see that these summaries have another thing around it. And what's that? Well, the summaries has two variants. But in order to test your agentic systems, you can make variants. For example, this variant says, okay, you are a concise legal analysis, summaries only the essentials, no fluff. This is variant 1. And variant 2, show variant, actually this is variant 0. And then variant 1 is you are seeing legal summaries faithfully from the private legs, do not recommend it. So the variant 2 is more complex, let's say, for what it is. But it can be any prompt more or less. And you can actually generate variants. The GenAI can generate variants for you, and you will see what is this useful for. And then this content safety is a tool. So if I would, you can only add tools if you run the compute session, and I did not run it, and it takes too much time to run it, so I will actually not run it here. But just so that you know that there is a large set of tools that you can use, and for example, this is content safety tool, and then you can see it. It also has some inputs there, and then we use the output of the summarize as the input to the tool. And actually, if I would run this, it would run both of these variants, or I can choose to run only one, that's default, or both variants. Then you could compare them. You can compare how fast they run and their output. So this is a very nice way to evaluate different prompts. So this is about more complex flows, and I will also just show a basic chat flow just to see the difference. So if you see for the normal flows, for the standard flows, that you had the input, you set the input, and then the whole flow just goes with this input. The chat has a little bit different. So the standard flows here the run, and chat has the chat option, and in here you click the chat, you get a chat window. So and this is just a chatbot, nothing, just a normal LLM chatbot. Yes, hello, and actually there's something, and then the chatbot just returns LLM response. So this is a difference between a chat flow and a normal flow. Now you can deploy these flows. I will not do this in this session, but if somebody wants to know more, I can show how to deploy them and how to evaluate them. And when you deploy a flow, then it can be also used as an endpoint, like or similar to any of your other deployments. You get an endpoint. You say, okay, this is the way that I want to authorize my users to authenticate. And for example, you say I want to use AP keys. Then you can use these flows just normally in your, for example, Python, other Python code. So that was all about flows. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.